Spoiler warning for any of the events in the main storyline. Also, if anything I mentioned shows up in the DLC, I haven't played those yet, and I'm judging the main story by how cohesive, interesting, and fun it actually is, versus how cohesive, interesting, and fun it should be as the main storyline of a AAA title. 449 days is how long I waited to finally get this game. It's been sitting on my wish list since the game came out, and Steam finally told me it was on sale at a decent price. Believe it or not, I'm actually a fan of those big blue kitty cat people, and I wanted to see how a game studio would handle such an expansive universe, especially since this isn't the first game made in the Avatar universe. The 2009 game, while no longer canon, is still quite the hidden gem, so I may get around to talking about it at some point, but today I want to discuss my experience with this newest entry, since I already have 50 plus hours invested, and might be a little addicted to it. Let's go over the story of the game, which in all honesty only takes up maybe 12 to 15 hours of your time, if you speed through it. I'm a little fuzzy on how long it took me to do just the main story, because I sped through the story up until the point where you could fly, and then went around doing a ton of side tasks and RDA outposts for another 10 to 15 hours, touching bell sprigs and tarsu saplings along the way, because I was playing during the week after work, and I wanted to save the main storyline for stream. By the time I finally got back to the main story, I was severely overleveled. Okay. I feel like I might be slightly over-leveled for the main mission at this point. Like, I went around doing literally, like, as many side quests as possible during the week so I could still have, something to stream. And now it's like, this is level 9? Level 15? What?
I could not stay at camp all the time.
But anyway, here are the events of the story. In 2146, 8 years before the first Avatar movie, you start the game in a class about the TAP program that you're a part of, otherwise known as the Ambassador program. It's the equivalent of an Indian residential school from back in the day, with the added purpose of preparing you to act as an ambassador for the RDA in the future, interacting with the native Na'vi and getting them to totally be on board with mining the earth and blowing up trees and all that stuff. It's not just you in this school, but 4 other kids as well. Ranella, Talon, Noor, and Ahari, who's also your sister. While you yourself are a blank slate of a humanized Na'vi with no name, personality, or personal opinions to note of, the other characters here fit into some easily recognizable archetypes. Ranella, the moderate or peacemaker. Talon, the teacher's pet. Noor, the traditionalist and imposter, and Ahari, the rebel. Presumably the entire time that you've been at this school, you've been taught by Alma Cortez, who's a doctor and avatar driver. More on her to come later. One evening, the kids decide to escape, led by Ahari. You get caught pretty quickly, and Ahari attempts the Disney approach to defeating villains with a song. That wasn't very effective, and Mercer ends up straight up killing her. 8 years pass, and this is when Jake Sully leads the whole Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains and sends the RDA back to Earth. While all of that was happening elsewhere on Pandora, here on the Western Frontier, Mercer calls for the closing of the TAP program, the school, and you. Alma saves you and the other students by killing those soldiers, but you can't escape, and Alma stores you in cryopods to keep you safe. 16 more years pass, and Alma finally came back with the milk to let you out of the freezer. For those trying to picture where in the Avatar timeline this is, it's basically the beginning of the second movie when the RDA return. You escape the facility with the help of Soltlek and finally see what Pandora is really like. You might imagine that being separated at birth from your tribe and family, raised in a sterile environment by another species, and then thrown back out into the world would cause some issues, but the game doesn't really show you much of that. Your character is surprisingly well adjusted for how much trauma they have and barely brings up their dead sibling.
I wish my sister were here to see this.
All of this is really just the introduction to the game, and the rest of the story consists of learning the basics of how to play, destroying RDA bases, and then gathering the clans to lead an attack on Mercer's main base. The first clan you interact with is the Aranahe, who are renowned weavers. They have an overabundance of butterfly-like creatures called Kinglor, and the Sahik Itua and this weaver, Nafika, make you connect with the Kinglor Queen to find out what the problem is. You then become the Kinglor Queen in a playable section, and apparently the RDA have these energy pulses coming out of balloons that disturb the Kinglor swarm and cause them a lot of emotional damage. Yeah, it's as much of a trip as it sounds like, but the clan is grateful to know what's going on. Also, now they'll let you get an Ekron since you've already gotten your 10,000 steps in, so now you can enjoy the game as advertised. The next tribe is the Zeswa, led by two horse girls, Nassim and Minong, so in this section, you live your horse girl dreams. For a very short amount of time, learn to tame the dire horses that are around until your Ekron feels that you feel comfortable with the new region. Okay, Gabe, stop trying to make dire horses happen because they're not going to happen. Anything you can do on a dire horse, I have found that you can pretty much do just as well on an Ekron. Call me Natiriot because I definitely didn't pick up a lot of plains people norms. You find out Harding, who is Mercer's right-hand woman, has been poaching animals to sell on the black market. One of those creatures being the Zakru, giant elephant rhino things that the Zeswa rely on for their way of life. You stop Harding's operations by defeating some poaching camps and celebrate with the Resistance at Resistance HQ. Nora confronts Alma about not doing anything to stop Mercer all those years ago that you were imprisoned by the RDA, but this gets cut off because the RDA comes in and bombs the base. How did the RDA know where you were, you ask? Talon. Yep. Talon hasn't been adapting so well to the new Na'vi life, and is the most gullible teacher's pet ever, so he's been talking into a special walkie-talkie to Mercer during all of your RDA destroying. You get captured and taken off to some other RDA base in a new region, the Clouded Forest. A guy named Billy, who is an RDA defector who joined the Resistance and is now pretending to defect back to the RDA side, helps you escape, but unfortunately blows up with the facility. I kind of want to know how that conversation went. How did he talk his way out of that one? I mean, he was at the party, right, in the midst of the Na'vi and dirty traitors. The RDA attack, and then he just goes, "So glad you guys are finally here. You've saved me from some stomach-churning dishes. Can't wait to get back to shooting those aliens." So now you join what's left of the Resistance in a new hideout, where you see that Alma's avatar is wounded, and you need to find the special Kamatiri clan to heal her. On your journey to find that clan and get them to cooperate, you find another TAP facility like the one you grew up in, and the game tries to become spooky with creepy kids' clothes, audio logs from Alma, and Thanators roaming the halls. Get to Earth? Like, I don't know how that would work, but I'd want to see it. Just replace him with his brother. Series should have just ended after he passed away. John Cena for some reason. Don't they have John Cena and, The Rock? Don't they? Oh. Am I supposed to be doing anything currently? Because I don't know where I'm supposed to be going. You find out that a member of the Kamatiri sacrificed your tribe to save their tribe, and wouldn't you know it, but Alma was also in on going with the RDA to meet your tribe that resulted in their slaughter and your abduction. Anufi, the leader of the Kamatiri, wants to make up for the betrayal of her clan member by healing the Resistance with medicine, but immediately after you give this medicine to Alma's avatar, Nora just stabs her anyway. Get a tiny piece of Sarantu history back as Alma shows you her memories of the day your clan was slaughtered, and you see your mother. They were when they were kids at the beginning.
No?
Nalubalut eni muma evi. Zanahibahaw.
Smuke the same.
Ahat di worko laf teliman si vunupor. Asunungar way white telem kefya.
How? You're a baby at this point?
Nora white telemangim. Tevurit ne yappy ven.
Oh, jeez. A touching moment, one of the few points sprinkled in throughout the story, where you're able to reclaim some of your Sarentu heritage. Then we get to the final battle section of the game. Mercer wants to go full scorched earth and just detonate explosives around the entire western frontier. The clans all come together to attack Mercer's base while you go in from below, the caves. It sure would be nice to see everyone fighting together and fight alongside them, but no, you only get to see cutscenes of them running in. A spinning cat? What spinning cat? Oh, jeez. No, look at him go. Look at him go across the bridgeway. Run, my brethren, run. Why don't I get to fight with them? Why am I stuck fighting by myself? Oh, okay. You fight some more amp suits, and then, good news, Talon switches back and betrays Mercer after you hum the Sarentu song. And that's really where the story ends. You and Talon trap Mercer with an amp suit in the building that's about to explode. Dude, you guys should kill him now. That is not killing him. He's gonna escape. Anytime you don't see the death on screen, they did not die.
Where is she?
We'll come back!
No! There's no time! No!
Yeah, sure, he's dead. No body, no death. And you two hightail it out of there. Where's Nor? Who knows? Where's Harding? No idea. That Kamatiri trader guy just kind of walked out of the story, and you still feel like an orphan with no real home and only a few regained memories, but...
You, Mercer.
Oh, got the
Pandora will remove
the
herself,
bracelet back.
and in a minute you will just be ash on her wings. Taylor!
At least you got your mother's bracelet back from Mercer. What can save even a mediocre story? Interesting characters.
Sharp eyes. A Sarentu's gaze.
People or Na'vi that you don't mind just enjoying the journey with and hearing their banter. Does Frontiers accomplish this? No, not really, unfortunately. I'd probably give the top 3 spots for most interesting characters to Talon, Alma, and Nafika. At least, those were the 3 that actually stuck out to me and I wanted to know more about. Characters that should have had more plot relevance, like Mercer, Harding, and all the Oloektons and Sahiks, really seemed more like a, "Hi, how are ya? I'm X," and then they'd disappear until the next cutscene. My Sarentu is an odd one. Why doesn't your character have an accent? I mean, obviously, so the audience can better fit themselves into the void, but realistically, there should be some accent. If anything, Talon should have the least accent since you spent a lot more time with the humans. Renella should be somewhere in the middle along with your character, and Nor should have a heavy accent to reflect his distrust of humans and attempts to hold on to the Na'vi language. Speaking of dislike of humans, you may think that I would be referring to Alma, who, yes, was incredibly naive and instrumental in your clan being slaughtered, but there is a character that grated my gears even more than her. Priya.
It's just that I think Mercer's planning something. We found...
See?
It's a party.
See? Stop dying.
Okay,
So, I've got a question for you.
Hydrate.
I'll do my best.
I think hydrating was what
I'm the
caused
funny
me the
one,
joke. I
right?
think it went down the wrong
Maria's just
pipe.
making up the numbers.
I am too funny.
Stop dying in there.
Quiet funny. What's quiet funny? You just made that up, Pri.
Well, you're both funny.
Because, I mean, it would be annoying if she was smart, beautiful, and
Oh
funny.
no, what is this?
I guess that's true.
Is this like a
Stop. I'll
comparison?
take smart and beautiful. Now give me some of that.
Oh my
think I saw it.
goodness. Cringe, Priya. Why you have to be so cringe? My
Very
goodness.
cool gear.
Queen of cringe. Destroyer of eardrums. Teller of bad puns. The list goes on, and I just couldn't get past how much of a self-insert she seemed to be. When I think of the game devs working on this game, I could see any one of them filling her spot. The other Resistance people were a diverse group of randos with little development. I think there's a love story thrown into one of the side quests, but I haven't gotten there yet, and that's never been a genre I particularly enjoy either. I mean, they serve their purpose as background characters, not much else to say. Talon does have an arc in the story, going from scared little boy on Mercer's leash to finally being able to question authority and start on his own path. Where the story leaves him, he does seem like he wants to learn more about the Na'vi ways, but I hope that they don't force him to renounce all technology in order to feel like a true Na'vi. Overall, it seems like a lot of the side characters are simply for decoration. They have a cool outfit and fit into a specific archetype. Alma, however, stands out later in the story for her inner conflict over atoning for her sins. While she did eventually betray Mercer, as Nor points out, she'd spent a lot of time idly standing by as they were abused. Apparently, her reason for this was blindness to the ambition of uniting humanity and the Na'vi, but how many years does it take to realize that the current methods will never lead to that outcome? She's supposed to be a smart character. She hid this secret for years because she knew how it would affect her image. It just kinda comes off as her trying to play the savior. The only punishment the story gives her is the loss of her avatar body, and for some reason the other kids don't immediately banish her. I don't know if I ever want to see her again.
I'm glad I got to show you before.
We should bury her.
Should we?
This. We should bury it.
Throw it off a cliff.
I'll take it.
From the memories you're shown, you're supposed to believe that she truly didn't believe things would go that south, and should be forgiving to her. I'm just going to be honest, she hasn't done anything to deserve forgiveness, and she still seems like she's only interested in saving her own skin. I added Nafika to my list just because I think the voice actress gave a nice performance, and I enjoyed the dialogue when she was in it. Maybe it also had something to do with the fact that she's one of the first Na'vi characters you meet that's actually kind to you besides Soltlek. It's admirable that she's willing to involve you in different tasks for the good of the people and Kinglor, despite the disapproval of Connaught. Hopefully there's still some side quests with her for me to complete, so I can hear her calming voice ramble on about how the Sarentu were in the past. Welcome to the great outdoors. You start the game in a dingy RDA facility. Clearly, the great outdoors is the most important location. That first time you step out into the light is still awe-inspiring with just how much foliage is in the shot. I haven't mentioned this yet, but the sound design is the best I've ever heard in a game, and I can immediately tell the general direction of an animal even long before I see it. Faint gunfire in the distance seems to reverberate off of canyon walls, and even the fluttering of insects' wings can make you turn your head to see where it's at. The three main regions of the game are the Kinglor Forest, the Upper Plains, and the Clouded Forest. At a meta level, obviously they start you in the Kinglor Forest because it's the most like the movies. Rainforest environment, all the iconic beasties from the movie that will trample and maul you, and the classic screensaver where they bioluminescence at night. The next section you go to is the plains, which brings way more attention to just how lonely and empty the gameplay feels without a co-op partner or even an NPC companion. It's not all flatlands. There are steppes, hills, and sunken areas with impressive stone columns. Without these sections, it probably would have seemed boring, but exploring all the nooks and crannies became enjoyable. You notice way more poppin' from the foliage, whether you're walking, riding a dire horse, or flying your Ecron over it. This was also the only biome that I noticed a ton of glitches in. Tiling issues with the ground were trippy. Black squares popped up beneath my feet, but after a restart of the game and fiddling with the settings, it did disappear. I don't know what it was about this area, but I also ran into quite a few airbenders. There are quite a few new creatures, or at least new to me, since I didn't recognize them from the movies or the 2009 game. This section becomes kind of like Jurassic Park as you circle giant spiny quadrupeds from above. While the area may seem bland to some, I was glad it was there as a way to shake up the visuals. The last area in the main story is the Clouded Forest, and it's spooky and has toxic fumes. I don't know if Shrek is hiding anywhere in these swamps, but you can easily imagine some areas smelling damp and very musty. It's basically a temperate rainforest, and despite also being completely covered in trees, it gives a very different feeling compared to the Kinglar Forest. The rock structures feel girthier, and the trees feel heavy and gloomy. Like in the upper plains, there are new creatures for this area that fit perfectly into the environment and Avatar's overall lore. As far as overall world building, I have no complaints. I'm sure they drew heavily on the research done for the films, and their attention to detail shows. Everything flows well together, and each of the clan's homes match their personality and style. The only criticism I can level at the game's locations are the various RDA facilities. I won't criticize how generic the outposts are because they're side installations, but the huge RDA facilities that you actually walk through all seem the same to me.
Alma, Mercer called Harding. He's furious at her for drawing the zest.
Sure, not a lot of access to building materials on a foreign moon, but couldn't they have made use of more of the local materials? No giant trees as girders anywhere. I mean, that's basically what explorers did back in the day. All the RDA buildings just blurred together in my mind due to their sameness, and only a few stuck out to me, like Analysis Center Bravo when you go with Oakle. Making the installations you destroy more unique could go a long way in helping the RDA section stand on par with the landscapes. While it's true that the gameplay could be better, I have to give it credit for what it does right. All the basic handling of the character, mounts, and weapons felt smooth. I shouldn't really have to point this out, but I've definitely played some games where remapping was a must from the very beginning. When I first started playing the game, I was actually using a cheapo wired Logitech controller and used visual cues alone to gather materials. I went through the effort of buying the PS5 DualSense controller just so I could see how much it improved the play experience. It was nothing life-changing, but the combined auditory and tactile cues really give weight to the larger RDA drill sites. At parts, the game almost allows you to go into a mirror's edge flow state of movement. The game likes to lead you with hints from the environment, and there are no yellow markings on walls. You go with the flow of the rocks and trees in front of you, and it's actually satisfying after you can see the paths carved into the forest. There were quite a few missteps though early on. For example, the very beginning of the game, a part that should hook players to continue playing, is exceedingly boring. You watch a really long cutscene introduction with minimal input. Then you take baby's first steps on real soil, and the Aranahe introduce you to hunting, crafting, and cooking. Here we go, you think, as you're finally on your own now, but then you spend another half hour running around, getting ran over by a hammerhead, and you know that at some point you can fly. So the whole time, you're just wondering, okay, is it now after this quest, can I fly? There's probably an optimal way of playing, or better said, an optimal route to most efficiently complete the quests. I definitely didn't do that. I got lost in the sauce of clearing up purple dots. For every clouded section you uncover, there are probably 3 dots that will pop up, and your screen will be covered in white spots trying to divert your attention. I got as many ancestor skills as possible early on, at least the ones that I could actually reach. I was definitely min-maxing with the focus on the survivor and warrior skill trees. Running into an invisible wall while trying to reach ancestor skills in the clouded forest was one of the rare moments when I felt like the game was actually limiting my movement. You could probably do main mission, close side quests, clean up RDA bases in the area, picking up bell sprigs and tarsu on the way, but trying to stop and investigate every white spot as it comes up just slows down the game way too much. Clan contributions would have to be planned out every time you go past a new camp. It's likely that this would always be something you'd have to complete after the main story is over, because I'm pretty sure there are camps that can't even be accessed until a really high level RDA base is cleared out that isn't even on the main game path. While I praised the game earlier for the sound design, there is one auditory aspect I find lacking. Where's the music? I'm someone who will pop on the Avatar soundtrack every other evening for a coding jam session, so I would actually like a constant string of songs playing in the background, even if there were only a toggle on the menu for this option. The only time for sure I know music will play is in the middle of a huge firefight, or if I set a waypoint completely across the map and get my Ikran to cruising altitudes, and mindlessly fly for a couple of minutes. I also got some music in the Zakru graveyard area when the sun had just appeared over the horizon, so maybe it's set to play music as the time of day changes. Maybe I was too busy in a firefight to notice this most times I was playing. The lack of music, though, makes the game seem much more empty until you run into a Navi at a camp playing some kind of stringed instrument. There's still so much left after the main story, but does any of it feel fulfilling? You follow the path of a Sarentu totem, take in the view, then go follow a group of moths and get a fruit, then paint with all the colors of the wind and meditate at a pretty location, then follow and touch the mushrooms, and then do the most fun activity in the game, foraging. Searching for clan contributions is the ultimate grind fest, along with searching for materials to craft better items. Early on, I had luck with just buying weapons through spare parts and even stumbling upon good items by just defeating random groups of RDA in the woods. The full weight of how tedious leveling up is dawned on me as soon as I had to actually research for all the items I need to craft an item were. One does not simply grab a material, go to a bench, and make the item. First, you have to have a design, then you have to check what items are needed. Once you have that down, you go to the Hunter's Guide to see where the item can be found, but hold on there, bucko, because if you want to craft the highest tier loincloth on this side of Pandora, you have to find the rarest ingredients, which are found in even fewer locations on the map. You pin those bad boys to your screen so they'll show up with a yellow glow in your vision, then fly or fast travel to the region. Uh-oh, the item you need is best collected at day, and it's now night, so you skedaddle back to the closest campfire and roast some hexapede weenies until the night is up. Uh-oh, there was one more thing you forgot about this item. It's called Fog Bloom. So now you're at the campfire praying to Awa every night for some fog the next day. Now let's dig into the details of how this game sold and how it was received. There are 4 packages available to purchase, plus the collector's edition that is no longer offered except on the secondary market. The base game came out at a whopping $69.99, and the Ultimate Edition could be acquired for $129.99, so that you could do an extra quest, get some cosmetic sets, access to the DLCs, and the almighty digital art book, so you could have some sweet desktop backgrounds. If you were a true superfan or Ubisoft fanboy, the Collector's Edition was offered by GameStop for Xbox and PS5 for $229.99. That included all of these items. When we get into the actual number of copies sold, we have to mention how there was a bit of radio silence when the game released. I do believe this had to do with the game's release being pushed back and them previously planning on using the second movie's release as free advertising. It was difficult to find information on the actual number of copies sold, but I did find an article from December 2023 talking about the UK sales charts, with Frontiers coming in at 5th place for physical sales for that week. Ahead of it were some heavy hitters like Hogwarts Legacy and EA Sports FC 24. I don't follow sports ball myself, but I know how popular it is. Without broad popular appeal, middle of the pack seems about right. Another article from Gaming Bolt in January mentions that the game had 1.9 million players in totality, which doesn't give an accurate view of how many people were playing at the time, with 133 million in revenue, way down from other Ubisoft successes like The Division's $330 million revenue. Going back to look at the Steam charts at the time, the game didn't get released on Steam until June of 2024, but at that time there were only a little over 1,000 players. The player count definitely dipped quite a bit between September and November, but there must have been a huge sale in January because it hit an all-time peak of over 2,500 players. Currently, the player count is hovering at 1K, but quickly sliding back down after another sale, which tracks with previous trends. In other words, this Ikran is on a nosedive, and I don't think anything currently in the game can help it recover. The fact the game is mostly a set story and single-player experience is no excuse either. Skyrim has lasted over a decade and is holding strong with its average concurrent players. When I bought the Ultimate Edition, it was on sale for about $45, and the base game was around $25 with tax. If we're going by the $1 1 hour rule, I've already got my money's worth with 50 plus hours of gameplay with several side quests and both DLCs to go. If I had bought the game on sale at the $25 point, I still think I would have gotten my money's worth at this point. But that's also because I'd consume pretty much any Avatar media. How does the average player perceive this game? And is it worth it for the average Joe? The ratings were mid, and people call this game the most Ubisoft of Ubisoft games. Basically Far Cry Pandora. I have to raise my hand here and say that I haven't played many Ubisoft games and nothing in the Far Cry series. The only Ubisoft games I have experience with off the top of my head are the last Avatar game from 2009 and Open Season for the Nintendo DS. Gamers across several platforms seem to have come to a consensus of a 6 or 7 out of 10. Overall though, I can't argue against the masses. The game was mid for most gamers, and slightly above average to me as a fan. There aren't a lot of Avatar games out there, and in terms of graphics, obviously this one takes the cake. Even I don't think it would have made sense though to purchase the Ultimate Edition at full price when it first came out. There is one more thing, however, that tanks its ratings, and deservedly so. The issue that popped up where players couldn't even play the base game without owning the Skybreaker DLC. A literal game-breaking bug certainly didn't help its ratings. Most of the horror stories I read on Steam were from people playing the game and enjoying it up until this DLC came out that ruined their ability to play the media that they bought. Where is the customer support? Ubisoft has not been having a good time the past few years, and that decline has become very apparent in its releases. Now, to get into what could have made the game better. If you couldn't already tell, I have a lot of thoughts about this game because I wanted it to be good. This is kind of how I feel right now. First, I would expand the character customization. Allowing people to make cursed characters may actually help you sell more copies, and it should really be given at this point. Other AAA titles put Frontiers to shame. I mean, sure, canonically maybe you'd have to limit the skin to a blue color palette, but I want to see an albino, overweight Na'vi in a bikini do a double jump to land on a branch, and then gracefully mount a dire horse and ride off into the sunset. The fans want to create their OCs, so give them the tools in the game to do it. Let's go back to the very beginning of the game. Give Ahari more heroic moments at the beginning of the game, where she saves your character multiple times from beatings and harassment from the RDA. Show, don't tell, and let the player actually play. The section at the beginning could have a series of short playable moments that set up how capable your sister is, how much everyone looks to her for guidance, and how much your character depends on her to survive the situation you find yourself in. You and the gang, led by Ahari, sneak into the cafeteria to get food. You're on the verge of getting caught, but she saves you and takes the blame. Another section, where you're about to fail training like target practice, and she saves you again. Then, when you get to the song bit with Ahari, instead of being killed, let's say she gets permanently sent to solitary. All that time passes, and you're finally about to escape, but you've never forgotten about your sister, and you go to break her out of solitary. She's a shell of her former self, and you're devastated. You're going to get her out of there, taking care of her as she once took care of you. But before you can completely leave the facility, you're forced to go into cryo, and you see her getting killed at that point by Mercer. Right at the cusp of freedom. You wake up angry, with a purpose, and something to prove or live up to, while also having more of an attachment to your sister. This is just something that could have helped the player become more attached to the character's sister, especially since it gets brought up at various points throughout the story, but doesn't seem to impact the main character too deeply. Visuals aren't everything, and the story was severely lacking. The game could use more moral ambiguity. I'm not saying you have to add another campaign like the last game where you join the RDA completely. I'm just saying that the game still hasn't done a lot to show levels of gray. There are the good humans and the bad humans. What about some people in the middle or independents? The main storyline should have had you teaming up with your Sarentu clan members way more. In fact, they should be your closest allies. I get that everyone has to relearn how to be Na'vi in their own way, but the game sure does love its throwaway dialogue about how everyone's getting on. You should actually see how well they are adjusting and what they're actually interested in versus just being told it. In line with the 3 levels of adaptation to the Na'vi way of life, Talon, Ranella, and Nor, they should have gone more into the 3 laws of Awa and how much of a struggle it is for the Sarentu to reconnect with their heritage. Show that conflict with Talon since he covers himself in walkie-talkies. Nor mentions not liking connecting to Awa because he doesn't feel worthy, but once again, this is something you hear and the game clearly doesn't want to focus on this conflict. Change Nor to be more of a direct antagonist to the main character. Trauma can affect people in multiple ways, and they should have gone further in this direction. Let the player try to prevent him from killing Alma's avatar. This would also be the perfect opportunity to add more melee options while fighting Nor. I really wish there were Na'vi avatars or recombinants that you actually had to fight to shake up the combat. There are so many other criticisms I have with this game. Why do some clan contributions give you nothing other than street cred? Why can't you use the earned clan favor to actually ask for a warrior or hunter companion specific to that region? I can understand them not wanting to travel kilometers away from their region, and maybe specific companions could have unique skills that they could even teach you. The game's so lonely sometimes. Please expand the co-op to at least 4 people, and add an online lobby. You should be able to make a home tree clan headquarters for the Sarentu. Decorate it, do idle activities like archery, target practice, paint a wall, create a little Ekron perch, something to help you feel like your character has a place in this world. This could also act as a lobby for online co-op, because who doesn't like a fancy hangout spot? The story was too safe. Add more drugged out butterfly flying. Anything interesting, really. Since there's no manual save system to the game, you can't replay any of the most interesting parts of the game. You should have an option to skip the intro and connect to a spirit tree to relive your memories and replay some of the more action-oriented portions of the game. You'd have to figure out what the reward would be, but I would kind of like to try different approaches to sneaking around the bigger bases, since it often ended in a full shootout. Now, my only option is to play through another 7 hours on a new save file to try something different. Change the Thanator section in the facility to where you actually have to hide and sneak around while unlocking doors and collecting data, a la Alien Isolation. That's totally the inspiration they had, right? So why did they fail so miserably at it? When I first realized there was a Thanator loose in the halls, I got excited because I thought there would actually be a tone shift into horror. What was that weak sauce? Finally, it's disappointing that NPCs don't wander. What would be their daily routines? Once again, it makes the world feel like a beautiful screensaver. With how deep the lore is, it's disappointing that they didn't work as hard to make the gameplay as deep as the visuals. Now let's talk about the fanbase and longevity of the game. Why would you make the long-term future of the game nothing more than a fancy screensaver or backdrop? If the studio considered the fact that players would get bored with the hacking puzzles and the extended collectible animation, then surely they must have considered what players would want to do after they complete the main storyline. I mean, they have a vendor in-game with extra cosmetics and weapons that you have to spend real money on, so they want players to continue playing the game. But what are you supposed to do after the main storyline's finished and you've gazed at every tourist spot in the game? All the RDA outposts look the same, and even those will run out eventually. Except apparently some of them will keep coming back, according to the posts I've seen on Reddit. This absolutely should have been a toggle, because I'm hoping to 100% this game at some point, and I would have loved to have a save file where the world is perfectly in balance. So much for inner peace. When you look at the way the community is interacting with the game at this point, 2 years after its release, even though some people such as myself have just now entered the game due to a sale, the general discourse is the same. It's mostly check out my Sarntu's drip and artistic landscape photography, which, I get it, I'm guilty of that myself. The other smaller percentages of posts are people asking for co-op partners, help locating certain items, or completing quests, and help naming their characters in the Na'vi language. I mean, that wouldn't have been too hard to implement, right? Just the ability to generate a random name, even if they never actually address you by it. Community is a huge part of what the fanbase holds dear, so it was a huge miss on Massive Entertainment's part by not allowing players to really form communities and play together. If Monster Hunter Wilds is any indication, players really like it when they can create their OC and play with their friends, battling gigantic monsters across vast landscapes. I think the game really could have benefited from larger beasts that you could hunt that really challenged the player. Or even a communal hunt like from the first Avatar movie. That would have been fun. I know that Massive Entertainment had a lot of contact with Lightstorm during the production of the game, so were the shackles too tight so everything would fit into the canon, or did they have no idea what Avatar fans would value in a game? Better modding opportunities. This basically goes back to Skyrim and what has kept it alive for so long. Frontiers needs its own creation kit to allow players to mod the game into what they know Pandora can be. There have been tons of texture replacements and lighting mods, but one look at the Avatar subreddit and you can tell that fans would go much further if they had the freedom to. Now, of course, Ubisoft would have to restructure their current in-game purchase model, because why would you buy an overpriced Ikron skin and gear pack when someone has modded something better? But if the only added value you have is holding character customization over the heads of players, then I think you need to rethink your strategy. So, was AFOP a flop? Yine? There's absolutely no way this game was a financial success, and when you look at its player count, it's unlikely to have much staying power. But compared to other spectacular failures in the gaming space like Concord, Avatar kinda just quietly came and left. I would be extremely surprised if they follow up with more DLCs for this game, besides the 2 that have already released. It's a mad game for general audiences, but for fans of Avatar, it leans closer to a decent game that has its quirks. Since about 14 years had passed since the last game, I had pretty much given up on any ideas of new media that could put me back on Pandora in a way where I could interact with and get lost in the lore, so I was open to pretty much anything. Being able to max out the settings, soar through the air, traverse various landscapes, and punch some arty in the face was good enough for me, but I'm still stuck wishing that Ubisoft and Massive Entertainment had gone the extra step to do justice to Avatar's expansive sci-fi universe with a meaningful story and unique gameplay.